In this session of the Purple Coffee Podcast, I interview Corbett Barr about escaping to Mexico when life gives you lemons, and a little project I like to call the Forever Free novel. Welcome to the Purple Coffee Podcast, inspiring stories from creative entrepreneurs. I am your host, Turn Dog, and this is session 3. Can you believe it? 3 episodes already. And on this occasion, I interview Corbett Barr about how he escaped to Mexico and rediscovered himself. It's all in aid of The Successful Mistake, which is a book I'm writing about entrepreneurs for entrepreneurs. I believe mistakes can be grand indeed, and if you look at them in the right light, they can be the catalyst to greatness. And I can't wait to share Corbett's story with you. But before that, I would like to introduce you to a campaign of mine called I Love You, the Forever Free novel. But what is that, you ask? Well, I Love You is my 3rd novel, and I've been writing it now for a couple of months, and all is going well. But right when I came up with the idea of I Love You, I also thought about doing something wacky, crazy, and I admit rather insane. Ultimately, to just give it away for free. That's right. I'm not going to ask people to give me money for this book. You'll be able to download the book, have it on your Kindle or your iPhone or on your computer, and you won't have to pay me any money at all. That's it. Go to Amazon, download, free. Yeah, I know. Quite a few people have said I'm insane. But there's more to it than that, and that's where the Forever Free campaign comes in. And I'm running a Kickstarter campaign to basically showcase my reasons for this and drum up as many misfits as possible, because this isn't about a book per se, rather the journey and the relationship between writer and reader. I'm really excited about it. So far, the support I've received is just undeniably insane, and I just feel absolutely 100% blessed to have so many people give me kind words, supportive messages, and ultimately join this band of merry misfits. I would love it if you wandered over to the Kickstarter campaign and had a look and share the on love. See what I did there? And you can do so at turndogmillionaire.com. There's various links to send you there, but I've created a bit.ly link because I like to be considerate like that. So if you type in bit.ly/kickstart-the-unlove, then you'll be taken to the Kickstarter page, which is pretty darn cool. And there is the video, several videos in fact, and I explain what I Love You is about, the general plot and who the characters are. I explain why it's going to be forever free and how exactly that works, and also showcases the 2 simple pledges. Yes, when you go on a Kickstarter campaign, usually there's like 10 rewards to choose from. You can get the signed this and the limited edition that, and I considered all of them options. I did, but on this occasion I wanted to keep things super simple, so there's just 2 options. You can pledge £1 and get an advanced copy of the ebook, your name in the book itself, and be part of this band of merry misfits, or you can pledge £15 and get all the above plus a signed edition paperback from the very first batch, sent anywhere to the world. So even if you live in like Mozambique, I'll send it to you for £15. How cool is that? So £1 or £15, and you can be part of this journey with me. And over the coming months, I'm going to share drafts and ask questions and do polls and make this something that you can be a part of. Come launch day, I want people like your good self to feel as involved in I Love You, the novel, as I do. It's a crazy experiment. I have no idea what will come of it, but man, I can't wait. And so far, it's been amazing. So if you head over to the website, and I'll put the links on this session's page too, which is bit.ly/purplecoffee3, or you can go to bit.ly/kickstart-the-onlove. And yeah, that's that. But you're probably also interested in a certain interview with a certain guy called Corbett Barr. If you have anything to do with the online world, I'm sure you've come across Corbett because he is an online god. He comes up with so many great advice. He has a great company called Fizzle. He's the guy behind Think Traffic, and he just knows everything there is to know about things like podcasting and blogging and internet marketing. And he's an absolute top guy to go on top of it. And we talked about how basically everything went to pot for him when one of his companies basically went bust. It had large investment, but the financial wreckage of 2008, 2009, basically destroyed that. And rather than just panic and go for the first job he could find, he escaped to Mexico for rather a long time with his wife and just thought, you know what, I'm going to relax and just let myself find myself and gather some momentum. And in doing so, he met great people doing amazing things and gave him a whole new outlook on what he could and couldn't do. And I'll tell you something, guys, the journey's inspiring, and it really is the epitome of taking something bad and negative, like having your business fold, and turning it into the greatest thing in his life. And the things he's created since then is spectacular, and I'm sure you'll take a lot of inspiration. But just in case you don't know who this Corbett Barr fellow is, I've created a little about bio for him in a way only a storytelling misfit like myself can do. So I've got my trusty iPhone here and I've made some notes. So yeah, here's Corbett's bio. If you're involved in or have plans to involve yourself in the internety world of blogging, passive income, podcasts and procrastinating on Facebook, then Corbett Barr is one of those individuals you learn about quickly, follow often, and dream about one day wearing a hat and pulling it off like he so effortlessly does. Would be good. He's been there and done it whilst the rest of us were still trying to determine what it is the doing aspect entails. These days he owns Fizzle, a worldwide web of spectacular aimed at helping the indie entrepreneur. Corbett is one cool cat indeed, and if you've yet to hear of him, well, you must have taken a 7-year hiatus from the internet. Either that, or not being procrastinating on Facebook nearly as much as you should be doing. So, let me introduce you to the man himself, Mr. Corbett Barr. Talks to. I'm very lucky to be joined today by Corbett Barr, who is the man behind Insanely Useful Media, which has several sites under its remit, but I think the one most people know Corbett for is Think Traffic. At least that's how I came across Corbett. And we're going to talk today about overcoming mistakes and adversity. But before we do all that, please, first of all, thank you for joining me, Corbett, and just tell us a little bit about who you are and what it is that you do.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Matthew. As you said, I run a blog called Think Traffic, which is really all about how to attract an audience online. I've been doing that for about 3.5 years, and around that blog, I run a small business. There's just 3 of us in the company, and essentially we have a training library for entrepreneurs, and we just try to help small-time entrepreneurs, sort of the everyday entrepreneur, make more progress in his or her business every week. That's really our primary goal. Personally, I've been an entrepreneur for around 10 years. I've been fully self-employed since early 2006, and I had some other attempts at being an entrepreneur, which led to failures, and we can talk about that if you'd like to. But yeah, that's basically me in a nutshell.
Fantastic. And I know that if you're setting up a blog or an online site, an online business of any kind, there are certain blogs and websites that you will follow, and I think Think Traffic is certainly one of them. And I know that you work with some rather cool individuals, people like Scott Dinsmore, for instance. And yeah, I think you're generally an individual who people get to know if they're on the online sphere. But I'm sure you've got quite a few obstacles that you've faced over time and tales of adversity. So let's kick straight in. That this is all for the successful mistake, and those who don't know, it's a book about overcoming mistakes, not being afraid of them. And I'm intrigued to know what your big mistake is and how it all came about. So please tell us that tale.
Yeah, I mean, to me, I kind of look at mistakes as like, losing a battle, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you lost the war, right? And so I never think of like, anything that I've done as a major mistake in life necessarily, because it all led to where I am today. And, you have to reconcile all of that and be happy with where you're at. regardless of those things, and maybe just learn for different things to do in the future. But I've made plenty of mistakes entrepreneurially along the way. I mean, like I said, I started out in 2003 with my first attempt to build an online business, and nothing that I built prior to 2009 still exists today. So there was a good 6 year span where everything that I tried, maybe lasted for a while, but eventually fell apart and collapsed. And those were all learning experiences. And those are things where, sometimes they were big and painful, and it really made you question, everything about what you were doing. But that gives you a new base, I think, to start out from and to work from. So, yeah, I mean, plenty of mistakes along the way.
And I love how you mention it. It's losing a battle rather than a war, because there's very few wars out there where you don't at least lose the odd battle. And I always use a lot of sport analogies in what I do, because I'm a big sports fan, and it's very rare that a team will go throughout a season without losing a game. It doesn't mean
Yeah.
that they're doomed for failure throughout the season. And in the same way as teams who have massive dynasties, it doesn't mean that they're not going to lose finals and big games along the way. And quite often big players need those big losses to really drive them forward to bigger and better things.
Yeah, and as entrepreneurs, we don't even have to be that good. I think you could win one game out of five or something, and it could still be a huge success for you if the one that you win is big enough, and if it's later in your career or whatever, that's fine. So I think that we like to, as a society, we like to sort of glamorize success stories and act as though that was the only thing that entrepreneur or that person ever tried to do. And we don't really look into their history too much and see what led to that success. And we also like to glamorize people who got lucky, frankly, on the first try. I mean, there are people who start out and have a home run right away, but that's really the exception. It's not the rule. Of the entrepreneurs that I know, people have been down in the trenches, like really struggling to make something work for a long time, and maybe they had a mild success before or something. But usually, the people that now aren't the people that spent a decade digging in the ditch and really getting the work done.
Absolutely, and I think a lot of people know you through Think Traffic. They see your blog getting huge hits and generally making a very good go of things. But you said for 6 years you had businesses that maybe started, got to a certain point, but then ultimately failed. So I'm interested to hear maybe a particular story from one of those sort of past businesses, and where it maybe did unravel, where a mistake sort of occurred, but it maybe helped you build a new business, possibly even Think Traffic
Yeah.
and what you're doing now.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, I think the thing that really turned my entrepreneurial journey around for me was the concept of building an audience around a particular problem and then delivering products and services to that audience specifically, because it's really easy as an entrepreneur to build a product or service sort of in a bubble where you're creating something and eventually going to put it out to the world and hope that they love it. And a lot of times, if you're not having enough interaction with that audience, it's easy to sort of get off track and create something that in the end nobody really wants. And I think that's really the biggest risk as an entrepreneur. In my prior life, before building this blog-based business, I actually did a sort of traditional, if you will, Silicon Valley venture capital-backed startup where I partnered with a co-founder, and we created a software prototype and shopped it around for the better part of a year to investors, to venture capitalists, to try to get someone to back us. And we did. We actually ended up raising around $3 million and built an office and a team, and spent a lot of time building some software that was essentially in the email prioritization space. And just a number of things happened. I think we, as I said, didn't pay attention enough to the specific needs of our customers. We had this like big grand vision of what we wanted to build, and we weren't solving an immediate enough problem for those people to really get to that big vision. And also, the market changed a little bit. I think the nature of email changed, and spam became less of a problem, and Gmail became better and better at handling those things. So anyway, I made a run of that for 3 years. We had, an office with 10 people, and it was my day-to-day thing. And it really felt like it might be, my legacy project, a really big thing that I do. And it ended up collapsing and falling apart in 2008. And mostly because, the financial world collapsed, and we weren't able to raise enough money to keep the entire team together. And we were just faced with a bunch of really hard decisions about letting people go and changing the course of the business and that sort of stuff. And for me at that point, it became time to really step back and reevaluate what I wanted from my life and my career. And I decided to take a 6-month sabbatical, and my wife and I took a road trip to Mexico from our place here in California. And that was really a journey of self-discovery and of thinking about what I wanted my next business to be about. And that's really what started my blogging career while we were on that journey.
Wow. And raising, $3 million plus dollars, having something lasting 3 years, and then to see it fail, that's got to have been, certainly have an emotional strain in it. I'm assuming it had certain financial strains too, but I would imagine the big one would be the emotional thing, because you've had the team of people, you've worked with the investors, and all of a sudden it's like, right, back to square one now. And that, I think a lot of entrepreneurs out there face that. They have a great idea, they maybe even have the audience, but for whatever reason it just doesn't quite work out, and then to pick yourself back up, it's got to be a tough thing to do.
It was tough. It was really tough. I mean, that entire 3-year period was just a giant emotional roller coaster, which, we go through as entrepreneurs. But I think especially when you're trying to play at that level where you're raising a lot of money and you're spending other people's money to build the business, and you're hoping for a really big hit. I mean, as soon as you raise money from investors like that, it just changes the whole dimension of the game. You really have to be aiming for millions of potential users for your service, as opposed to something that just, organically grows and supports a small team or whatever. So it's a big roller coaster. You go from the lowest lows thinking that everything's over, to raising money and then having the highest of highs. And then every day just thinking that, either this isn't going to work or it's going to be the best thing ever. You just kind of vacillate between those two things. And then eventually just to have it all, to see the writing on the wall and to have it all come collapsing down. That was a dark period for a few months. And I knew that it was so emotionally traumatic that I wasn't really in a good state of mind to think about what I wanted to do next. And that's really why we decided to hit the reset button and take a sabbatical, and really just reconnect with who I am and what I wanted from life, and what I wanted to do, and to take things, just slowly, step by step from there.
And I personally think that's the bravest thing of the entire story there, because when something like that fails, I think the easy thing, and the thing maybe people panic in doing, would be, I need to now get a job, or I need to go straight into my next idea. I need to, just keep on moving. But then to take a complete step back and 6 months traveling around to sort of rediscover yourself and find that passion, that's a pretty brave thing to do. But obviously, I'm guessing that led you to discover what you wanted. And did it maybe sort of lead you away? I don't want to go down the investment route now. I'd rather build something a bit more organic.
Yeah, those thoughts started to percolate while I was on that trip. I mean, really, I thought that when we went on that trip, that what would happen was I would take a couple of months off, reconnect with myself, sort of think things through, and then eventually come up with the next idea that I wanted to build in kind of a similar way, maybe raise investment and go through that whole process again. But while we were down there, sort of serendipitously, we just started meeting people who were really interesting and living different kinds of lifestyles that I didn't really know were possible before. These people weren't rich or retired in any way, but they had figured out ways to live in a foreign country for many months out of the year. Some people were permanent travelers. Other people maybe had careers that they could put on hold for a period of time. And I didn't know that was possible. These people had sort of made their careers work around their lives instead of the other way around. Because, when you think about what we're all trying to build here, it's really easy to get caught up thinking about money and status as the ultimate goal, right? and to sort of adopt everyone else's goals. Especially if you're in an ambitious place, like California, like Silicon Valley, everyone is chasing these dreams, and you don't necessarily know that you want that dream. It just feels like you should because everyone else wants it. But in the end, you have to ask, what's the end goal? After you build this company and have this money and status and everything, what are you going to do from there? And really, what are the realistic chances that you're going to build some massive Facebook-like success? It's very slim. So I started studying these other people who had figured out ways to live really interesting lives, almost as if they were retired, but they weren't. They just had made their careers work around their lives. And I simply started blogging about that because I found it interesting, and I wanted to ask myself those questions sort of out loud about what I wanted from my career and my life, and how the two should integrate together. And I spent, the next year or so blogging about that and just really thinking about it for myself and how I was going to build my next business in a way that really let me live a more interesting lifestyle, basically. And that was 4.5 years ago that I started that process.
And it's amazing just sometimes taking a step back. I mean, this is obviously rather a grand mistake and rather a grand step back in the sense of going traveling. But I personally find sometimes, even if you're making a sort of smallish mistake, just getting yourself out of that little bubble, whether it's going for a walk or a run, anything really,
Yeah.
just taking a day off. Sometimes it just opens up your mind. You meet people who you might not otherwise meet. And it just does give you that different perspective and makes you think, actually, what do I want from all this?
Yeah. Yep, absolutely. You just have to compose yourself and put yourself back together and not just jump right into things because it's really easy to make an emotional decision that's not, your true self, I think.
Fantastic. So that trip very much led to sort of a rediscovering and showing you a different world where actually I can achieve something where it isn't as stressful. I can maybe build it a little bit more organically, and I can focus on things that I'm very passionate about and sort of take it from there. And like you say, over the last 4.5 years, you've worked with some incredible individuals, and you have a site which is certainly one of the sort of forebearers for things like blogging and online entrepreneurship.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I think that it's very easy to live, as I said, within other people's constraints and to feel like you have to follow other people's ideas of what success looks like. And the world changes so fast, especially with technology. The world has been changing so quickly over the past couple of decades. I think those notions that we have of what success has to look like are simply there just because people are afraid to try new things, maybe. But that doesn't mean that those new things can't, pretty easily work out. And also, I think it's useful, as you said, to take a walk or whatever. I took a rather long walk, a road trip. And it's also useful just to get away from your normal influences, to get away from your family and your coworkers and the friends that you see down at the pub or whatever who are just doing the same thing with their life over and over again and have quick opinions about anyone who's trying to do something new and interesting. To break free from that a little bit and maybe to find support in other people who are more aligned with the kinds of things that you want to do. And maybe those people aren't, in your immediate town or whatever, but maybe you can connect with some people online or, take a long trip or move or something and just get new surroundings for a while.
And I think we're going to end it pretty much on that point because I think it's ideal, that whole idea of just escaping your world. And I think it's especially convenient for online people because we get sucked into this world of, living on Facebook or Google Plus or in your blog or other people's blogs. And you can kind of forget that the real world exists. And sometimes just going out there and going to a random event that you wouldn't go to and just meeting some people face to face who might be, printers or, accountants. Sometimes that can just open up your mind and go, I'm glad I'm doing what I'm doing because I'm not doing this. So
yeah, absolutely. Yep.
Well,
yeah. If you don't know what you want, just start with identifying what you don't want. Sometimes that's easier, right?
Absolutely. I think it always makes me feel better when sometimes I meet someone and I go, you know what? At least I don't have their job because I can't imagine I would enjoy that on a day-to-day basis. So
right.
That's good. Well, I think it's been an absolute pleasure. It has been an absolute pleasure speaking to you. And I think the advice on offer is going to help a great deal of people. And just because you have that huge sort of ground shaking event doesn't mean that you can't still take a step back. And it might not be a 6 month road trip, but it might just be a weekend away, and that can also obviously all make the difference. And I think doing something that you would never usually do is advice we can probably all take on board, and it certainly does open up them spheres. So Corbett, thank you very much for joining me. It's been a real pleasure.
Fantastic. Thanks for having me on, and good luck to everybody who's maybe making mistakes right now. We all do. It's part of life.
Absolutely. If Corbett can make them, we all can. So indeed, viewer, thank you for watching, and cheers.
Cheers.
There you go, folks. Session 3 of the Purple Coffee podcast. Inspiring stories from creative entrepreneurs. A huge thank you for Corbett, not only for being part of his podcast, but for the success mistake. It really was an honour to meet Corbett and to ask him some questions. And he's someone I would love to speak to in the future about other stories, because as you can imagine, he has lots and lots of them. I'm sure you've taken a great deal of inspiration from it, and I feel what Corbett did is one of the bravest things you can do, because when you come across failure or you come across a mistake, the easiest thing to do is to panic. We rush into doing something, and more often than not it will turn out worse. What Corbett did was took a step back and thought, I'm not going to rush into finding a new job or setting up a new business. I'm going to just take a step back and travel the world a little bit, enjoy life and see what comes of it. And when you take yourself away from the problem like that, whether it's for a few hours or in his case a few weeks, it can open up an entire new light. And had he not done that, I fear the internet world may be vacant of Corbett Barr, which would be a real shame indeed. And this is one of my key ingredients in overcoming mistakes. I feel we have to take a step back from it and go, what can I learn and where can I take this? Sometimes a couple of minutes is all we need, but sometimes it takes longer than that. And I loved Corbett's story, and I'm sure you did too. And that's it. Another session over and done with. Thank you so much for watching/listening. And I hope you'll take a wander over to the Kickstarter campaign and check out I Unlove You, the Forever Free novel. I'm very excited. I'm sure you're intrigued. So check it out, share the unlove, and consider maybe pledging. Of course, I would love to have you back here again. And if you wander over to the Session 3 page on turndogmillionaire.com, you'll find all the various links to Corbett's Facebook and Twitter and website. He's someone you should be following and catch up on often. But there's also links on how you can subscribe to the Purple Coffee podcast. If you like to watch, then you can follow the Vimeo channel. If you like to listen, you can subscribe to the iTunes channel. And if you'd like to have this sent to your inbox before everybody else, there's a list you can subscribe to. All of those details are on the website. And I created a bit.ly link. As always, it's bit.ly/purplecoffee3. So check it out, and until next time, have a most merry misfit time. Glad to have you on board.